Hi everybody, this is Anne. Putting imagery on pottery is a very popular surface decoration. My favorite way to achieve this is to draw free-handedly right on the pot. Unfortunately, that way of transferring imagery can be a bit intimidating. In this video, I'll explore paper resist as an easy way to achieve image transfers on your pottery. I'll show you 3 projects working from an easy design to more complicated mixture of techniques. For the first project, I'll be transferring ginkgo leaves to a bone-dry plate. I folded a piece of newsprint in half. Starting along the paper crease, I drew an arc upward, then arced it upward and back to the crease. To cut it out, I started lower along the crease for the stem, then continued cutting along the lines. Along the top arc, I wiggled the scissors to create a leafy edge. I created 6 larger ginkgo leaves and 6 smaller ones. I'll attach the largest 6 leaves first to the plate. I brushed water onto the clay to help the paper stick. Then when I had the leaves where I wanted them, I brushed water over top of each leaf. Now I'm going to use Amico Velvet Baby Blue underglaze for the first color. My underglaze is a little on the dry side, so it's thicker and less likely to bleed under the paper. Using a dry fan brush, I dipped it right into the underglaze, then coated the whole surface. On that first coat, I tried to brush from the center of each leaf outward over the leaf edges. I let that layer dry completely. I applied a total of 3 layers of the light blue. On top of that color, I applied the rest of the ginkgo leaves by lightly re-wetting the plate, this time wetting the paper template too, then sticking it randomly over the first layers. For the top layer of color, I'm applying the electric blue underglaze. I followed the same steps of carefully brushing, applying 3 coats, and letting the underglaze dry between coats. When the blue was almost dry, I removed each of the leaves. They can be a bit difficult to see, so you really need to look for the ghost images. I had a couple areas of leakage. I gently scraped it away and then just repainted those areas. Now here's my first attempt at this design. I think I cut too many leaves as it's a little bit busy, but I still like it. Brushing clear glaze over the particular underglazes will make the colors darker. I thought I'd glaze one of the plates with the clear to show the difference. The electric blue turned almost black, but it made for an even better contrast. On the second plate, I brushed Spectrum Beige glaze over the white areas and Amico Sky glaze over the baby blue leaves. I left the background underglaze naked. It'd be vulnerable to staining from food, but a great decorative plate to display. Now let's do a project with a little more structure and planning, adding simple line painting. Again, I started with a bone-dry plate. I cut out some hummingbirds, grass, and hibiscus. First I found and drew a circle around the center point of the plate and around the outer rim. I laid out my paper templates, placing the hibiscus in the center, then the grasses, creating quadrants, and the hummingbird should fit inside each quadrant. I lightly drew lines around each hummingbird by drawing lines from the center circle to the outer rim band. I marked each hummingbird quadrant with an H as I removed each paper piece so I could remember what went where. I'll begin by painting with the Amico blush. I'm using a flat brush this time and adding 3 layers over just the center and the hummingbird quadrants. I'll be mixing the baby blue with the intense yellow for the next color. The yellow is very powerful, and just a few drops will change the blue to a nice gray-green. I applied 3 layers to the rest of the exposed clay sections. I then applied all the paper templates in the same way that I did in the first project. With the more delicate paper pieces, I was careful as I brushed water over them not to tear them. Once they were adhered completely, I brushed the electric blue over the entire surface again with a fan brush and adding 3 coats. I had a little bit of bleeding when I took the pieces off, so to clean up the edges, I simply scraped that top layer and repainted any areas that needed to be touched up. Using a pencil, I added line details in each hummingbird. To paint those lines, I thought gray would look a little more delicate than black. So I mixed Amico white with a couple of drops of the Amico black. I used a fingernail detailing brush to create the delicate lines. I used Amico bright red to the very center of the hibiscus. Now for the carving. I carved away the belly section of each hummingbird. I used a stylus tool to create a swirl in the hibiscus and along the grasses. Now here's the finished design on a plate that I made earlier. To finish it, I brushed glazes of similar color over each of the imagery. I brushed sky glaze over the background. Let's add simple painting along with the paper resist. I drew and cut out these cute frogs and wispy grasses. I defined a center circle and an outer band along the rim. I attached the frogs straddling over that inner circle. I'm using a bamboo calligraphy brush for this next step. I dipped it straight into the baby blue and began applying a large swath of it over the frog from the inner circle line to the outer rim line. On one side of the swath, I'm pulling simple lines from it like grass shadows. On the other side of the swath, I laid the brush down on the plate to create more leaves and berry shapes. I applied 3 layers of the blue, and when it was almost dry, I laid the spiky grass along the blue area over the frog. When I was happy with the placement, I wet the whole piece. With the same green from the last project, I began making random strokes over the blue but not covering it completely. Again on the grass side, I pulled several blades pointing your eye to the opposite side. I tried to include different thicknesses and also making some of them overlap. Along the leafy side, I added more leaves and even leaf stalks, overlapping but not covering all the blue. Using the intense yellow, I added a few more contrasting leaves and grass. I used the blush with my detailing brush to add just touches of pink flowers to warm up the design a bit. For the frog, I used a pencil to trace around the feet that were inside the center part of the plate. When everything was dry, I removed all the paper resists. I added little touches of the black lines and red dots in the flowers. I then painted the exposed frog leg with a light green. Now here's a plate that I painted earlier, where I painted also little flies for the frogs, and I carved out a swirl in the center. To finish it, I glazed the interior circle and outer band with Spectrum Beige. I then glazed around all the imagery with my white liner glaze. Using the paper templates, I hope I gave you some ideas and inspiration to be creative and pick up a paintbrush without being intimidated. Thanks to the newest members of our Little Street Pottery Research Facility team. If you'd like to join the team and earn a title, click on the Super Thanks button or the link to buy me a coffee. It also really helps us out if you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. See you next time in the studio.